Welcome back to AZ Sports Roundup. Today we have a very special guest, Orion. We're going to talk about NBA mock drafts, both of our mock drafts. Let's get into the intro. So, starting off with the Dallas Mavericks, they have the number 1 overall pick. I think this one's pretty obvious. He's had a great season at Duke, great defender. This would be a great pick for Nico Harrison, so they're obviously going to select I'm just kidding. Cooper Flagg, that's the easy pick. He's going to be maybe a top 20 player. Orion, what are your thoughts on him?
I think he's very good. I think he's a lot like Anthony Davis, and I feel like as a front court they could work. I don't know which one I would put at center. Honestly, even though Davis is bigger, maybe Flagg just for like the jump ball and the athleticism. They're about the same height. I would honestly personally put Flagg at center and Davis at power forward. I think it would work better. Even though Flagg's better shooter and stuff, but Flagg, like with the athleticism he brings, he can jump really high. And against like players like Giannis or Jokic or a lot of like the faster kind of centers or like Towns, I just don't really think Davis would really have too much to master them just because he's not all athletic, and Flagg has that. And Davis would be a lot better at dealing with like LeBron James and Naz Reid and all those dudes.
Yeah, I think he can play. I think he'll primarily play power forward, but it just depends on the matchup. Because like some matchups, like you said, he could play center. I think he's gonna play power forward so he can shoot because he's a decent 3-point shooter, and centers don't really shoot threes. But he could play anywhere from like 3 to 5.
Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend putting him at the 3, like 3, 6, 10 dudes, like all on the same team would just sort of be like awkward.
Yeah.
Wouldn't really work that good.
So next pick, the Spurs have the pick. I do think they'll trade it, but there's no trades in this mock draft. So I have them selecting Dylan Harper, the point guard from Rutgers. Nothing really I can say. I just think he's just the best overall player, and that's just what the Spurs need. I don't really have anything else, but Orion, who do you have at number 2?
I have Colin Knuckle just because Harper, I don't think either him or Fox could play shooting guard. And there would just not be good. Like having just 2 point guards in the same lineup, just not enough 3-point shooting, which the team is already really bad at. So if they draft Knuckle, he could play shooting guard. Castle could play the small forward, and then Fox could stay at point guard. It could get better spacing. Knuckle could offer to shooting. Fox could offer to passing, and Castle is pretty tall, so I feel like he could offer the defense and stuff. And power forward could be like Mamusev or whoever. The power forward's not good. And then with Wembanyama, I feel like everything could just come together a little better, but they should trade the pick. Get Booker, LaMelo, or Brown. One of those guys to play shooting guard instead.
Next at number 3, I could have gone Ace Bailey, but I ended up going with VJ Edgecombe, the guard from Baylor. He's a very athletic, great at defense. His shot isn't there yet, but he that could develop. I think he did have a bunch of team meetings with the Philadelphia 76ers, and the 76ers, they really like Edgecombe, and I think that's who they're gonna get.
Yeah, I have them getting Bailey just because Bailey's just overall I don't think he's that good, but the team doesn't need more guards. They already have Jared McCain, Maxey, and Grimes, who are all guards. And even though Bailey's technically a shooting guard, he could play small forward, and Paul George could play power forward, I guess. Like, it would be okay, I guess. Still a little bit small, but still. The Sixers on another team, I think, should trade the pick. There's no pick in the draft that can really help them all that much. The team just needs to rebuild, and, picks aren't the way for them.
Yeah. So, with the number 4 pick, I wanted to go Ace Bailey, but the more that I think about it, he just doesn't work on the Hornets, which is why I have them selecting Con Knuckle from Duke. The Hornets are not a great shooting team. Knuckle can add shooting to the team. I think he'll be a good fit. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but that's definitely the safe option, which with superstars that are very unlikely on how much they'll play with LaMelo Ball or Brandon Miller, I think the safe option for the Hornets would be best.
Yeah. I think Harper could go in there because I feel like LaMelo could shine a little bit more at shooting guard, just getting more 3-point potential because he has a good percentage and he throws them up a lot. Harper can provide more to passing to Mark Williams, Miles Bridges, LaMelo Miller, all the other guys.
Yeah.
He can just provide the passing. He can be the real point guard because LaMelo, even though he's technically playing it, he's more of a shooting guard. Harper amplifies what a real point guard is.
Mm-hmm. So with the 5th overall pick, I have the Jazz selecting Trey Johnson from Texas. I might be a bit high on him, except I do think he's probably the best pure scorer, just best player at getting to the rim and making a basket. He can make a basket from anywhere, which is basically what Ace Bailey was advertised. But I do think Johnson is a bit better at this than Bailey, which is why I have them. And I don't know if Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson is the long-term answer at shooting guard, which is why I think Trey Johnson would add a lot of value to the Jazz.
I would have them taking VJ Edgecombe just because the team kind of needs a shooting guard. It's not too big because, like, the small forward's John Collins, the power forward's Markin, and the center's Kessler. The team already has everywhere run from the 3 to the 5 is all like 6'10 plus, so getting like Sexton, Clarkson, and like Edgecombe offers like a little bit more athleticism and shooting instead of like literally having 3 centers in starting lineup.
Yeah, I do think they needed a shooting guard, and if Edgecombe was available, I would take him over Johnson, but in my mock, he already went to the 76ers, so Trey Johnson, he's a great player, that's why I have. With the number 6 pick, the Washington Wizards, I think it's time for Ace Bailey to go off the board. I don't really love him. I don't think he's going to be that amazing as some people think he is. But the Wizards can't pass this up because the potential he has is through the roof. Because if he was advertised coming into college as he could, basically a Trey Johnson type, or he can score from anywhere. He's not the greatest at that, except I think if he can develop, he might be a risky prospect, but if he can develop, this might be a good pick for the Wizards.
I think they should take Malawach just because either Sar or Vukcevic, they're both tall, but they're both like skinny. They don't really have a lot of rebounding. They're more shooting. They're more just like tall power forwards, but like not having Malawach is a really established center, good rebounder, good scorer, just does all the things you'd want from a center. He's like 7'2", he's like 260. He just kind of like amplifies what a center is, and I don't think Sar or Vukcevic does that. I feel like Malawach can instantly start on the team and just make sure that Sar and Vukcevic won't have to play the center, and they can go back to power forward, which I think they're more made to, and maybe they can play center off the bench.
So with the next pick, the Pelicans, I have them selecting Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. I don't think he'll start right away with DeJounte Murray, except there is a high possibility that the Pelicans trade Murray in the offseason, which I do think they should do. I don't think Murray is the long-term answer, and eventually I think Fears could get into the starting lineup. I really like him. He's just an all-around good player, and I think that works better for the Pelicans.
Yeah, I have the Pelicans taking Kaspers Jakushiones just because he can play the 1, the 2, and maybe even the 3, like, kind of depends. He can shoot, he can pass. He just sort of, like, offers everything, and I feel like it would be easy to plug him in there. Like, if they want to take out DeJounte, they can put him in at the point guard, and if they want to take out Herb or Trey, they can bump one of them up to small forward and then have him play the 2. Like, he just has a lot of potential. He can score and he can pass. Just kind of an overall just good prospect.
Yeah. So I have the Nets taking Kaman Malawach. They kind of like what Orion said. He's a true center. I know they have Nick Claxton. I expect him to be traded. I think Malawach, he's a great player, very athletic. He might need to work on his rebounding just a little bit, but it's not horrible. He just had that one bad game against Houston where he only got 2 rebounds, but I think he'd be a great fit on the Nets whenever Claxton eventually leaves, and I think he could be maybe a top like 10 or 5 center in the league someday.
I have the Nets taking Igor Dem, and even though he didn't have a super good season, sort of like Bailey, he has a lot of potential. He's a similar player to Bailey, but the potential, and I feel like he can start just because the Nets don't really have anything at forward, even if he's technically a guard. He's like 6'8", 6'9", has defense, has pretty good athleticism. He can kind of just do everything, sort of. So I feel like if they plug him in at small forward next to like Drew Time and everyone, I think they should make some trades. But I just think Igor Demon being there, just like the potential, and there's a chance he is really good and becomes like a top 20 player in the league.
So the Raptors, this is an interesting pick. This might be dealt in a Giannis trade or something, but I have them taking Noah Essengay, the international player. I think he's just a good all-around player. He's not super tall, but he's kind of athletic. I think that I was either going to put Derek Queen or Essengay, and I think Essengay is just the better fit, honestly, on the Raptors. This wouldn't happen if they got Giannis because Essengay and Giannis both play the 4, but I think this is a good pick for now.
I have Toronto taking Trey Johnson just because he can score, and I feel like Emmanuel Quickley is not very good. And same thing with like RJ Barrett and Scotty are also on the trade block. And I feel like that if they really like want to trade Quickley, they can like throw Johnson in there for like point guard or shooting guard, kind of whatever. I feel like he is everything like a guard wants. He's a really good shooter. He's pretty athletic. He can pass. He just sort of amplifies what you want from a guard. And I feel like even if he's not like a star one day, I feel like he should always just be like a solid starter, like at least like D'Angelo Russell level throughout his entire career.
Mm-hmm. So the next pick, the Rockets, I have them selecting Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina. This is kind of what they need. This fits the Amen Thompson kind of. I don't think he's going to be as athletic because Amen Thompson's just really athletic. But I think Murray Boyles, he could be a good 3 or 4 coming off of the bench. Good defense and good scoring. That's basically what the Rockets need. They already have decent depth, but I think Murray Boyles could add a very good addition for the Rockets bench.
I think that they should take Queen just because he's more of a power forward, but he can also play center. He's a tall player, he's like 240, 6'10", 6'11". He can shoot, and I feel like next to Sengun, they can have more size because like the team's overall not that big. Like unless they move Sengun and put Adams in there, and Adams isn't that good of a center, and like putting Dylan Brooks or Tari Eason or even Jabari Smith at power forward, it's just they're like small forwards at heart. And I feel like with Queen in there, you can sort of fill the power forward gap, like next to Sengun, to have just more overall size, because that was one of the Rockets' biggest problems.
So for the Blazers, I have them taking Kasparas Jakučionis from Illinois. I don't think Scoot Henderson is the answer. I thought maybe he would have a good season this year. That did not happen. There might be just a sliver of hope for him, but I don't think that he's the long-term answer. I think they could get Jakučionis to get him off the bench, maybe see if Scoot Henderson has one more left in him. But I do think that in a few years, Jakučionis will start. I think he needs to improve his defense just a little bit, except they already have 2 good defensive players in Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija, and I think this would be a good pick for the Blazers.
I think the Blazers are another team that's just not in very good shape right now, but I feel like they could take Boyles just because like they were able to develop Avdija from like a not very good like bench player on one of the worst teams in the league to like a possible future all-star and like a top 30, maybe top 40 player in the league. And I feel like Boyles is a really similar player to Avdija, and if they can develop him the same, like Avdija and Murray, like one can play to 3, one can play to 4, won't really matter. But I feel like if they can like have both of them, like 2 Denji Avdijas, and the team could actually maybe make the playoffs just off of those 2 alone.
Yeah. So, the Bulls, I have them taking Derek Queen. I do expect Nikola Vucevic to be traded. I think he'll go to the Warriors, but I do think they'll take Derek Queen. There's some skepticism on his athleticism, his conditioning. He's not in the best shape as a center, except his pure scoring ability is amazing. I think he's not going to be a superstar in the NBA, but he could be just a safe pick for the Bulls. I think he's going to be a decent center, and that's honestly what they need.
Yeah, I have been taking McNeely because the player I compare to most is Malik Beasley. Just sort of like shoots, gets a lot of threes, high percentage, can average like 13, 14 a game. Will never be super good, will never be super bad, but I feel like they can, like, especially if Giddey gets traded, they can just move Kobe down to the 1, stick McNeely in there at the 2, start them all in. I feel like McNeely can just, like, he can just shoot threes, he can average, he can get scoring, he can just, I feel like he would just fit well into the Bulls system, just because they're not a super good shooting team.
So the Hawks are on the clock, and I have them taking Carter Bryant. I was thinking of going with Agor Demon, except I do have them taking Bryant, the safer option. They don't need a superstar because they have Trae Young, they have Dyson Daniels, and Jalen Johnson. Not all of those are superstars, but they are definitely good players. I think they don't need an Agor Demon because they already have Trae Young. and Dyson Daniels in the backcourt. I think if they take Carter Bryant, he could be in the 4 next to Onyeka Okongwu and Jalen Johnson. And I think he's the safe pick, which is kind of what the Hawks need right now.
I think Jace Richardson is going to Atlanta just because, not only do the Hawks, have a decent chance of trading Trae Young, I feel like he could fit better on a few teams, and the Hawks just aren't that good, but I feel like the backup point guard to Trae Young is Garrison Matthews and Karis LeVert, and both of those guys are, not good, and they're not even really point guards. But I feel like with Richardson, I don't think he'll start, but I feel like he could at least be off the bench, just to take a little bit of pressure off Trae Young.
So, with the Spurs' 14th pick, so like what Orion said earlier, taking Knippel, they need shooting. And I think McNeely could add that to this team. He's not going to be as good of a shooter as Knippel will be, except I do think McNeely is a decent shooter. I think he can play the 3 or the 4, Wemby can play the 5, and I don't know if he will start, but he might start, and this will allow for the Spurs to get some good shooting.
Yeah, I would honestly take Danny Wolf just because the thing the team struggles most with right now is the power forward, because Barnes and Mahmoud Kashev are just not very good at all. And if you look with Wolf, he's tall and he can shoot, kind of skinny, but not tiny. I feel like with him, they have a tall dude who can play next to Wemby, who can Wemby's the tall guy that offers defense, and Danny Wolf is the tall guy that offers the scoring. He's just a solid power forward. He's 6'11", 7 foot, and he can shoot. Not a super good defender, but that's why they have Wemby. And I feel with power forward, especially if they have Knuppel, honestly, with Castle at the 3, Wolf at the 4, Wemby at the 5, and Knuppel at the 2 with Fox at the 1, then the team could honestly make the playoffs and maybe even to the second round.
Yeah.
If everything turns out right.
Mm-hmm. So the Oklahoma City Thunder, I have them taking Cedric Coward from Washington State. This might be a bit of a reach, except I don't think that they need a safe pick. I was debating if they were to go a Jace Richardson, except they don't need a safe pick because honestly, I don't think a Jace Richardson would honestly get any play time. Because they have so much depth already. I think Cedric Coward, he has the potential to be a monster. He had insane measurables at the combine, an insane vertical, and his athleticism is very good. I think Coward could be a star, and he also might be a bust, except this bust or star thing, that would work for the Thunder because they don't need a safe pick. They already have enough depth, and honestly, if they were to take any of these safer options, I think they might not be on the team in 1 or 2 years.
I have Noah Sengi just because the thing the team lacks in the most is that the only players on the team who can play center are Hartenstein, Chet, and Jalen Williams. The tall Jalen Williams, not the short one, even though he kind of can, but it doesn't work. So that's why I have them taking a Sengi, just because he probably won't get too much playing time, but I feel with that they can have an entire backup starting 5 after, with a Sengi being the center or Williams being the power on the bench. I feel they can just offer bench, especially because Hartenstein might get traded, then they can put a Sengi at the center and keep Chet at the 4, which he works better at.
Yeah, so the Grizzlies, I debated either Richardson or Demon, except I ended up going with Jace Richardson from Michigan State. There is concerns on what position he'll play. He's too small to be a point guard, and his shot isn't good enough to be a shooting guard. I don't think that will matter, honestly, because they have John Morant. He might get traded. I do expect him to play the 2. He might get more minutes because Desmond Bane got traded. He might not start, but he actually has a decent chance to start, which is why I think he's a good pick. He offers good shooting, and he's just the safer pick for Memphis, which is kind of what they need.
I have Jeremiah Fears going there because I do think Ja is getting traded, but even if he doesn't, Jeremiah could go play at the 2, and the only really competition for him starting there is Luke Kennard, who I don't think is that good. So if they trade Ja, they can just replace him with Jeremiah, and even if Ja doesn't get traded, I'm pretty sure Fears will be able to be better than Kennard at least by the end of the season.
Yeah. So the Timberwolves, I have them taking Asa Newell, the forward center out of Georgia. I was debating taking Danny Wolf here, but I don't think they need the scoring that Danny Wolf has. Asa Newell's not horrible at it. I just think his defense is a little bit better, which is what they need. I think he'll play the 4 with Gobert playing the 5. And I think they could have a double big man, insane defense, and with good shooting from McDaniels, and Edwards is obviously great. I do think they need a point guard, except I think rather than go on a fly to get a Nolan Traore or a Walter Clayton Jr., I have them taking just the safer pick, and I think they'll address point guard in the trade.
Yeah, well, as you just said, I actually have them taking Walter Clayton Jr. just because I think it would fit good in the system. Mike Conley's not that good. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's not that good. DiVincenzo's a 2, and he'll probably get traded. I feel like with Clayton, even though, there's a chance he's absolutely horrible and is a G League or something, but there's also a chance that he could be a genuine second option to the team. And I feel like he's a 17th overall pick. Worst case scenario, he's a bust, but I feel like they should just cash in on it, and there's a chance to get a franchise point guard out of it.
Mm-hmm. So the Wizards have another pick. I have them taking Danny Wolf from Michigan. He could play the 5 or the 4, just depends where they want to move Sarr or Wolf. I think he'll probably play the 5 with Alex Sarr playing the 4. Danny Wolf, he offers good scoring. His defense is alright, but it could be improved. He's not tremendously athletic, but just his pure scoring. For a big man, that's what the Wizards need right now.
I have Thomas or Bay going in there. He's a lot like Naz Reid, even though he probably won't start. Because as I said, if they draft Malawak, Saul will be able to play the 4. And I feel like with Sorbet, he could kind of play he could sort of play the 3, I guess. But that'll be the Utah Jazz thing. But I feel like off the bench, he could just he could be the backup at the 4. So he can just go in there and get a little bit of playing time, and maybe could average 8 points a game and 6 rebounds. Just offer a decent just role player for the Wizards, because there's not really too many people that would fit on the team too good.
So this is where Igor Demon's slide in my draft ends. I think he's going to go to the Brooklyn Nets. I think he could easily go higher, but just the fits on the previous picks are better. I do think the Nets will take a fly on him just because the potential that Demon has is through the roof. I think if he could be what he's advertised, he could be maybe a number 1, 2 option for at least the number 1 right now, just because the Nets don't really have anyone other than Cam Johnson, and he'll probably be traded. So I think they could go on a fly and take Demon here.
I have them with this pick taking Asa Newell, just so he can, just if Claxton gets traded, they can put him in there as the center, even though I do think they'll trade. I think they'll probably trade for a center maybe Kessler or Pirtle or Capella. I feel like one of those dudes will probably go if they do trade Claxton. But the Nets also need forwards, and Newell can just be a good fit at power forward and can just trigger the Nets rebuild. And especially if they do draft Demon, Demon at the 3 and Newell at the 4, if they both pan out as good as they are, then that could actually be a really good forward duo. And if they can get Pirtle at center, then I feel just if all the pieces come together, it can actually be a decent team in 5 years.
Yeah. So with the Heat on the clock, I have them taking Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida. So Terry Rozier is not working out for the Heat. I don't think he's going to be on the team next year. I think they might go after a point guard in the trade deadline, the offseason. Except Walter Clayton Jr., what Orion said, his potential is amazing. If he can be what he was at Florida or just a little bit less, that would be tremendous value. I know there's concerns about his size and his jump shot from mid-range, but I think Clayton will be at least a decent 6th man or a decent backup point guard, and I think his potential could be one of the best point guards in the league, which is why I think the Heat should take a chance on him.
Yeah, I'm taking Ryan Kalkbrenner going to the Heat. I know they have Kel'el Ware, but, averaging, 9 rebounds and 19 points in college almost never happens. Kalkbrenner can play the 4 or the 5. He's give or take the same size as Kel'el, but, if they want to trade Bam, then I feel Kel'el and Kalkbrenner together, even though they're both over 7 feet, then I do feel it could work. Just because Kalkbrenner's tall and can shoot, a good center. He's a really good all-around player, and I feel if everything pans out, he also could be like a maybe top 50, like just overall solid starter in the league, especially if they trade Bam, he'll get a lot of playing time. And I feel like they don't need starters at this point, but off the bench, it would be good because Khalil doesn't have a backup.
Yeah. So the Jazz, I have them taking Nick Clifford from Colorado State. I was really impressed with his game. He had a good combine performance, and I think he might not start just because they have Kessler and Larry Markkinen and over there and Keontae George. He's gonna be a decent acquisition off the bench. Maybe he'll go into the starter role if he's really good, and I think he would be a decent fit for the Jazz.
Yeah, and I have Nolan Traore going to the Jazz just for like a backup point guard. Like, as I said with Trey Johnson, they need some stuff. Like, I don't think Traore will be, like, he doesn't have all that much potential, but he's kind of like Colin Sexton, and I feel like the team already has a ton of rookies, so I feel like best case scenario, he can, like, get some bench rotation. The Jazz is the worst team in the league, so I don't think there's too much that can really save them, but Traore going there could at least, like, maybe be a starter in the future.
Mm-hmm. So the Hawks are on the clock, and I have them taking Thomas Sorber from Georgetown. I think he could be a good backup center. They don't really have one because Onyeka Okongwu, he's probably the starter. But Sorber, he could add very good skills from the bench. His insane wingspan, I want to say a 7'6" wingspan, which is pretty good for a center. And I think he could add a lot to the Hawks as a backup center.
I have Carter Bryant going there. Like, yeah, he had a pretty bad college career, like 6 points and 5 rebounds, but a lot of the scouts are talking about him, and he's like, he can play the 2 or the 3. He's just, like, fine, I guess. Like, I'm not a very big fan of him as a prospect, but I feel like if he goes there and pans out, like, maybe he could be a starter in the future. I'm not too fond on it, but the teams like him a lot.
Mm-hmm. So I have the Pelicans taking Joan Behringer, the international center. They don't really have a true center. I know Herb Jones could play it, Zion could play it, so Yves Missi, except Behringer, he's a true center. I don't think he'll start, but if they need him, he might be able to be a decent starter, and if not, he's going to be a good player from the bench.
But I have been taking Hugo Gonzalez just because, like, another point guard, if DeJounte gets traded, Hugo can be plugged in there. Like, he's kind of skinny, but he is tall. And I just feel like he's kind of like Trey Murphy. He's like 6'7", 190, I'm pretty sure. So, but I feel like he can pass. He just kind of has. He's a good shooter like most European stars. And I feel like maybe he can be a starter in the future.
Mm-hmm. So the Oklahoma City Thunder have another pick. I have them taking Ben Serif, the international guard. Honestly, I doubt he'll play, or I don't think anyone that they take will play much, but I do think this is probably the best player available, and that's just why I think they should take him.
I have them taking Noah Penda just because more power forward. If the team needs anything, it's just size, and Penda's the, like, decent player who can, like, has shooting and just some skills that they can just plug in there, even though we'll probably only get, like, 6 or 7 minutes a game. But I feel like he can at least just offer more depth to the team at the power forward, which it doesn't have a lot of.
Mm-hmm. So I have the Magic taking Nolan Traore, the international guard. His shooting is not good, which is, I think if his shooting was there, he would go a lot higher. He has everything else. He's a decent passer. He's a pretty good defender. I think he'll be a decent backup point guard role. I don't think they have a true point guard, but they're probably going to address that in whether it's a Ja Morant or like Ja Morant trade in the offseason or someone else. I do think Traore will be a good backup point guard for the Magic, though.
I have Colin Coward going there just if, like, even though they will probably trade for a guard, like, Coward, they can put him at point guard if they really want to, because Suggs is off an injury, and if they don't trade him, might be out. And I feel like Coward can play. He can play the 2 or he can play the 1 or the 2. He has a lot of potential, but there is a pretty high chance he's a bust. But, like, if it's the 25th overall, who cares, you know? Mm-hmm. So just put him in there. They can try to plug him in, even though there's a chance he'll be a G Leaguer by the end of the season. But there's also a chance that he can make one of the rookie teams.
Just don't look at the graphic I put on here. Okay, Brooklyn has the pick. They're taking Will Riley. Just don't mind the graphic up here. I think just best player available. That's just who they're gonna pick. So like on my graphic, I forgot to change the teams for picks, all the other ones. So
I have Neat Clifford going to Brooklyn just because he can play the one or the two. He's kind of skinny, but he can offer some scoring. He's kind of like Cam Thomas, but I feel like if they trade Cam Thomas, they can sort of like raise Clifford the way they raised Thomas. And Thomas for like a few seasons was really good. He's sort of falling off now, but I feel like they can maybe get that out of Clifford. And if they draft the rookies, I said before, they can have like a kind of young team. And if they develop like Boston or Houston or Oklahoma in the future, then the Nets could maybe be a young team just because of how many picks they have.
Mm-hmm. So the Nets have another pick. I have them taking Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's. He's a good all-around player, and I think he's the best player available. He kind of slated just a little bit. People project him to go a bit higher. Except I do think Fleming is a good fit for the Nets. They need young players. They have 4 draft picks, and certainly one of these will be good.
Yeah, I have them taking Ben Seraph, a point guard, just because the team doesn't really have that much of a guard, and I feel like as a thing, just kind of add to the rebuild. Ben Seraph is just a solid point guard, and I feel like if with all these picks, if they just keep him and just hold on, because the thing is, if they take, if Demon pans out, if Newell pans out, if Clifford pans out, and everyone else does in the end, I just feel like there can be a lot of the team has potential in the future to be a super good young team just off of this draft alone. And, Seraph is just a way to just add to that, just more young players who have a lot of potential.
So I have the Celtics taking Drake Powell. I think he's going to be a good forward. He could play the 2 or the 3. I think he'll probably play the 3 off the bench. They have Peyton Pritchard. I don't think he'll play point guard, except I do think that he could offer good depth for the Celtics.
Yeah, I had the Celtics taking Hanson Yang, just because someone who's 7'3" and 260, he's kind of like Kamon Malawach, but worse. But he does have a similar ceiling, just Malawach is more experienced. Porzingis is probably getting traded, and Porzingis, he's tall, but he's skinny. Doesn't really amplify that much of a center. Hanson, embodies that. And I feel like in the future, he has a decent chance of just being a starter for Boston. And he's another player that doesn't have a super high ceiling, but, not a very low floor either. He'll probably be okay.
Mm-hmm. So the Suns are on the clock. I have them taking Maxime Reynaud from Stanford. They need a center. Their center currently is Nick Richards. He's not bad, except they don't really have a backup center. I guess Mason Plumlee's there, but I think Maxime Reynaud could be a good backup center for the Suns, and they just need all the young players they can get, so it just doesn't really
I have Phoenix taking Tyrese Proctor. He can play the 1 or the 2 and is a super good shooter. The Suns are another team in the league, similar to Utah and a lot of our teams, are one of the worst teams in the league, but Booker and Durant might get traded, and if they want to start a rebuild, you need one 3-point shooter that can just go out there and provide. And I feel like Tyrese Proctor provides that, and he's just overall a good prospect because he's pretty unlikely to be a bust.
Yeah. So the last pick, the Clippers, I have them taking Ryan Kalkbrenner. The main concern is that he's an older prospect, but honestly, that doesn't really matter to me that much. I think he's a safe pick. He's a good defender. He's a good scorer, and I think he honestly might be the team's starting center. I don't know if Ivica Zubac is going to be there much longer, but if not, he's going to be at least a good backup center for the Clippers.
Yeah, I have Fleming going to the Clippers just because the team doesn't really have a power forward. Kawhi might leave, Harden might get traded, and he can play the 3 or the 4. And he's just overall an okay prospect. You can't expect too much out of the 30s overall, but he has a ceiling, kind of high. He gets a lot of comparisons to, Nicholas Batum and stuff. So he in the future, he could be decent. Not overall that good of a prospect, but at this point, the Clippers don't really, need a position that good. They're just kind of an awkward kind of team. So yeah. I have Fleming going as the last pick of the first round.
So that is our first round mock draft. Thank you guys for watching, and if you made it this far, just comment down if you agree with us, if you don't agree with us, and comment your take on who, like, just any pick, honestly. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.